ॐ तव कथामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं श्रवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि गणन्ति भूरिराधना. Your words are like nectar, bring life to scorched souls. They are praised by poets and remove all sin. They are auspicious to hear, wonderful and exalted. Those who spread these words throughout the world are truly giving souls. Welcome to our class on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. We're on chapter 34. This is entitled Bankim Chandra. And this, of course, is about Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, the famous author and playwright, mostly author, who came to visit Sri Ramakrishna. They had come to Adhar's house. This Bankim had some desire to meet Sri Ramakrishna, maybe to test him, maybe to see, And we've seen already that he hasn't left a very good impression at the beginning because he was a bit of a wise guy and a smart aleck. Chanchara. Thakur uses this the term. English translates is very saucy, but it really means shameless, a low-class fellow. Yeah. Okay, so anyhow, we're on page 675, and the middle of the page. So Bankim was about to take his leave. Bankim bowed low before the master. He was about to take his leave. Bankim, sir, I am not such an idiot as you may think. I have a prayer to make. Please be kind enough to grace my house with the dust of your holy feet. Master, that's nice. I shall go if God wills. Bankim, there too you will see devotees of God. So this is where we stopped last time. Master smiling. How so? What kind of devotees are they? Are they like those who said, Gopal, Gopal, Keshav, Keshav? Yeah, they're puns that only work if you know the Bengali, these things. Anyhow, it'll get explained later. They all have double meanings. All laugh. A devotee. What is the story of Gopal, sir? Master smiling. Let me tell you. At a certain place, there is a goldsmith's shop. The workers there are known as pious Vaishnavas. They have strings of beads around their necks, religious marks on their foreheads, and bags containing rosaries in their hands. They repeat the name of God aloud. One could almost call them sadhus, only they have to work as goldsmiths to earn their bread and support their wives and children. Many customers, hearing of their piety, come to the shop because they believe that in that shop there will be no trickery with their gold or silver. When the customers enter the shop, they see the workers repeating the name of Hari with their tongues and doing their work with their hands. No sooner do the customers take seats in the shop than one of the workers cries out, it's written Keshava, Keshava, but the Bengalis won't pronounce it Keshava, they'll pronounce it Keshav. Keshav. It has to be pronounced Keshav for the whole thing to work. A few minutes later, another cries, Gopal, Gopal, Gopal. After they talk a little while, the third man cries out, Hari, Hari, Hari. In the meantime, the customers have almost finished their transactions. Then the fourth exclaims, Hara, Hara, Hara. The customers are very much impressed with the devotion and fervor of their owners and feel themselves quite secure in handing them the money. But they are sure that they won't be cheated. But you know what lies behind all this? The man who says Keshav, Keshav, actually two words in Bengali, Keshav, Keshav. Yeah, who are all of these people? So the man who says Keshav, Keshav, after the arrival of the customers' men, it means, who are they? In other words, he wants to know how intelligent they are. The man who says Gopal, Gopal means to say, Pal means a herd. Go means cows. Yeah. Gopal, Gopal means to say he finds them no better than a herd of cows. The man saying, Hari, Hari, means may I rob them? He suggests that since they are like a herd of cows, they can be robbed. And the last man who says, Hara, Hara, yeah, Haro, Haro, replies, yes, rob them. He means that since the customers are like a herd of cows, they can certainly be robbed. Here, too, you see a group of pious men very much devoted to God. All laugh. So, Thakur didn't have a very high opinion in general of the people of Calcutta. Yeah, that he would come back from Calcutta, and I saw everybody's mind was on low things. And, so he's wondering what kind of devotees there'll be at Bankim's place. Bankim took his leave, but he was absent-minded. When he reached the door, he discovered that he had dropped his shawl in the room. He was in his shirt sleeves. A gentleman handed him his shawl. Of the devotees at Adhar's house, Isharat, this is our Swami Sharadananda, Isharat and Sanyal were Brahmins. But Adhar belonged to the lower caste of the goldsmiths. We've seen this before with Kedarnath and some others. There's hesitation to eat at Adhar's house. Adhar belonged to the lower caste of the goldsmiths. Yeah, his other Sen was his last name. That can be goldsmith also. Huh? Usually Boidia. And so the two Brahmins quickly left. This is, our Swami Sharananda. Just at that time, he's still probably late teenager. Isharat and Sanyal had been coming to the master only a short time and did not know how fond the master was of Adhar. The master used to say that the devotees formed a separate caste by themselves. Among them, there could be no caste distinction. Yeah, when Thakur was asked about this Brahmo Samaj and other reformers who wanted to get rid of caste, he used to say, this is the one way to really do it, through devotion. Those who have great devotion can be considered to belong to one caste. There were so many movements like that. I think the Sikh movement, Sikh Dharma, they wanted everybody to be like one caste. I think Chaitanya Deva, when everybody took Das for last name, or Singh for last name, so that people wouldn't recognize what caste. One of the problems in India is almost as soon as they hear your last name, they know what caste you're from. And so discriminating can start just by hearing the name. Author entertained the master and the devotees with a feast. The other times, Thakur will say, sit down, don't go anywhere. And they'll apologize. That happened with the Kedarnath.
Bankim also left because of caste?
I don't know if he left because of caste. He left earlier. Yeah. It doesn't sound like it. But because he was invited by Author and their friends and everything. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Author entertained the master and the devotees with a feast. It was quite late in the evening when the devotees returned home, cherishing in their hearts the image of the master in his spiritual ecstasy and remembering his words of great wisdom. Since Bankim had invited Sri Ramakrishna to visit his home, the master a few days later sent Girish and M to his Calcutta residence. See, Thakur, he himself is taking responsibility for the honesty of Bankim. So you see what he's doing. That if he sees that Bankim is not really making an effort after saying, I want you to come to my house, then he'll give him the opportunity so that he won't be telling a falsehood or making a false promise. Since Bankim had invited Sri Ramakrishna to visit his home, the master, and not a real invitation, there was no date or anything, just sometime I'd like you to come. The master, a few days later, sent Girish and M to his Calcutta residence. At that time, Bankim had a long discussion with these two devotees about the master. We don't know what exactly it was, positive, negative, or anything. He told them that he wanted to visit Sri Ramakrishna again. Now, before he wanted him to come to his house. Now he's saying he wants to visit him again, but his desire was not fulfilled. So we don't know if he was sincere, that he really wanted to see him, or circumstances came up. What was the date for all of this? This is what year? So this is almost the end of 1884. Yeah. So another 6 months after 7 months after the 6 months, Thakur comes down with the throat cancer, the first signs of it. So maybe there was no opportunity. Okay, this it's a little bit different from the original, but this kind of ends the first section of the gospel. It's kind of broken up into two for some reason. Okay, originally it was written in 5 volumes, but even with the English translation, maybe it was earlier published and printed in 2 different volumes, the English translation. Okay, so now we're on page 677. This is chapter 35 at the Star Theater, part 2. The Star Theater was, this is December 14th. Yeah, so it's not exactly corresponding. The Star Theater was probably the Girish. He was kind of a promoter also. He had his own theaters. He was the most important person. This was the most important of the different theaters that he had. There were 2 or 3 different ones. So Sunday, December 14th, 1884. Sri Ramakrishna arrived at the Star Theater on Beedon Street in Calcutta. Yeah, one of the first real meetings. Girish saw him at the devotee's house, but really actual contact and everything was at the Star Theater when he was in. Thakur went to see one of his plays, and he very respectfully greeted him at that time. So now he's come to see a play about the life of Prahlada. M. Baburam, Narayan, and other devotees were with him. The hall was brightly lighted. The play had not yet begun. The master was seated in a box talking with Girish. So Girish himself had come to see Sri Ramakrishna and was sitting with him in the box. Many of these plays, and Girish not only wrote but acted in them. So there's probably one where he didn't have to act in it, so it was free. Master smiling. Ah, you have written nice plays. Yeah, Thakur had seen the life of Chaitanya, maybe life of Buddha, the Prahlada. At least I think those 3. Anybody else know? Which one? Yeah, she was performing there, but I'm talking about different plays. Yeah. Girish. But sir, how little I assimilate. I just write. Master. No, you assimilate a great deal. The other day I said to you that no one could sketch a divine character unless he had love of God in his heart. Yeah, really, Girish is considered a kind of genius. And father of modern Bengali play, stage, and excellent actor. There was one performance where I forget, he was playing the villain something, and he did it so perfectly. It may have been Vidyasagar. Somebody took a shoe off and threw it at him, and he saluted him in thanks that he had done such a good job. Anybody remember that? Satubhai, was it Vidyasagar?
No, not sure.
That could have been. I think it was Vidyasagar. No, because it was such a good acting job that he thought that he.
compliment.
Yeah, it was the highest compliment I could get. Yeah. So, Master, no, you assimilate a great deal. The other day I said to you that no one could sketch a divine character unless he had love of God in his heart. Girish wrote some of these, you could say, religious plays even before meeting Sri Ramakrishna. So he kind of introduced a lot of these things, especially this life of Buddha wasn't very well known in Bengal at that time, and based mostly on Sir Edwin Arnold's Light of Asia. Yeah, yeah, and so that really helped popularize. He really he played a great role in society at that time. The Sri Ramakrishna speaking. Yes, one needs to assimilate spiritual ideas. I went to Keshav's house to see the play Nava Vrindavan. Now, Keshav, they used to put on plays, the Brahmo Samaj, but these were amateur plays. They were members of the Brahmo Samaj who would play. Even Narendra played a part, at least in one of them, maybe more. And that's why he could get accused of being an actor on the stage by Mazumdar when he was in Chicago. A very silly thing. So I went to Keshav's house to see the play Nava Vrindavan. I saw a deputy magistrate there who earned 800 rupees a month. There's a huge amount. Yeah, Adhar was making 300, and that was deputy magistrate, and that was considered a big amount. And he wanted that other job for something like 1,000. So this was a lot of money. Everybody said that he was a very learned man, but I found him restless because of a boy, his son. He was very anxious to find a good seat for the boy. He paid no attention to the spiritual conversation of the players. The boy was pestering him with questions. Father, what is this? What is that? He was extremely busy with the boy. You see, he merely reads books, but he didn't assimilate their ideas. And Girish, I often ask myself, why bother about the theater anymore? Yeah, many who came to Sri Ramakrishna within a short time had some desire to give up their worldly profession or even worldly life, even family life and everything. He had that kind of influence on them. Master, no, let things be as they are. People will learn much from your plays. The performance began. Prahlada was seen entering the schoolroom as a student. At the sight of him, Sri Ramakrishna uttered once or twice the word Prahlada and went into samadhi. During another scene, Sri Ramakrishna wept to see Prahlada under an elephant's feet. See, when they say Sri Ramakrishna goes into samadhi, it can be for 2 minutes, it can be for 2 hours. There's all different ranges and things. Clearly, he comes down and is able to watch the rest of it. So, of course, this is M's guess what type of mood he goes into at that time, whether it's a bhava or samadhi or what. So during another scene, Sri Ramakrishna wept to see Prahlada under an elephant's feet. He cried when the boy was thrown into the fire. The scene changed. Lakshmi and Narayana were seated in Goloka. Narayana was worried about Prahlada. This scene too threw Sri Ramakrishna into an ecstatic mood. So here we're saying ecstatic mood. After the performance, Girish conducted Sri Ramakrishna to his private room in the theater. He said to the master, would you care to see the farce, Vivaho Vibhrata, the confusion of marriage? Master, oh no, why something like that after the life of Prahlada? I once said to the leader of a theatrical troupe, end your performance with some religious talk. We've been listening to such wonderful spiritual conversation, and now to see the confusion of marriage, a worldly topic. We should become our old selves again. We should return to our old mood. Girish doesn't get upset with any of this. So, Girish, how did you like the performance? Master, I found that it was God himself who was acting the different parts. Yeah, this is one very typical aspect of Thakur's personality or mindset, that whenever he would uh, watch any type of performance, he would feel not that he's watching actors performing. He would really feel that he's watching the real scene, that he's really seeing Chaitanya and the Advaita Acharya and all of that. He really feels this. He used to say ashol nokol, this, the uh, the imitation and the real and the imitation to him were the same. If we see imitation fruit, if it's really well done, our mouth will water. We'll want it. Yeah. So with him, whether well done or not well done, that was the way his mind worked. I found that it was God himself who was acting the different parts. Those who played the female parts seemed to me the direct embodiment of the blissful mother, and the cowherd boys of Goloka, the embodiment of Narayana himself. It was God alone who had become all these. Yeah, probably the cowherd boys were played by female actresses. In those days, many of them, this, we were talking about this Vinodini, and she played the Chaitanya Deva. There are signs by which you can know whether a man has truly seen God. One of these is joy. There is no hesitancy in him. So this is the first thing, Ananda, Thakur was saying, that there'll be some spontaneous joy, and it won't be based on any external thing. Now, there may be, of course, in the case of Sri Ramakrishna, if he saw his Narendra Rakal or something, but if he's just by himself alone, he'll be joyful. Yeah. This is an Atmarama state. Yeah. And this other thing, Sankoch. There's something, Sankocha is one of the 8 bondages, huh? Or one of the 6 passions. One of the 8 things, the Sankocha, yeah. That it means kind of fear of exposing oneself, one's emotions, shrinking away, a type of, it could almost be in a positive sense, modesty or something like that, but in this case, it's really just kind of secrecy or what will people say, what will people think. Thakur saw this element in M. Yeah, as wonderful as M was, he would hesitate to get up and sing or dance with the others at the time of kirtan, things like that. So Thakur would sometimes scold him a little bit, yeah, or some of the others. You rascals who won't sing and dance in the name of God, yeah, like that. So this and coach. So here it says, no hesitancy in them. So, yeah, afraid to say anything that people will judge me, something like that, huh? Sankoch. How will you explain it? Sankochito. Something like that, huh?
Shy.
Shyness can be okay. See the lajja, yeah, shy to a fault. Shyness because it's one thing to be shy, it's another thing to be proud of oneself, but to not want other people to know somehow. I don't know. Because shyness itself is not a bit. It's lojja. If we say lojja, this has a little different from sankocha. This has a variety of meanings, from the very best meaning of modesty to the worst of shyness, to too much embarrassment or afraid to that people will judge us. So Thakur used to say, "Loja grina bhoi tin takti noi," that we shouldn't have this type of shyness or and hatred and fear. Holy Mother used to say the opposite. Loja grina bhoi tin takti hoi. That meaning, especially, see, Thakur said for women especially, that he thought modesty was a great virtue. That was part of the culture of the day also. Yeah. So, but this Sankoch Bhava is a little bit different. There's a little deceitfulness in it,
Maybe pride there,
a little pride, a funny type of reverse pride. Yeah, little pride in not letting people know how wonderful we are, but proud that we're not letting them know how wonderful we are. Some, I don't know, something like that. But this is one of the signs that there's no that means that there's no fear that someone will talk about me or judge me. I if I get up and I sing and I dance or anything, or I make a mistake, some people are so afraid of making a mistake they won't say anything. They're afraid people will judge them. So so these are the two things that he's mentioning here. One of these are the signs by which we can know of a God realized person. One of these is joy. The other is there is no hesitancy in it. He is like the ocean. The waves and sounds are on the surface. Below are profound depths. So the Sankocha Bhava, it's really that we're so aware and so identified with this outer personality thing that we're so nervous about what will people think and say about us and everything. The opposite, that so uh, identified with that reality deep within and feeling oneself to be beyond everything, that nothing can touch us. People let them say what they want to say. Who cares? One of the first conversations we see in the gospel between Sri Ramakrishna and Narendra is about what do you do if people start saying things about you, criticizing you and everything. Yeah. And Thakur giving the example of the dogs walking behind the elephant and barking, and the elephant is completely unconcerned. So it's like that. The man who has seen God behaves sometimes like a madman, sometimes like a ghoul, without any feelings of purity or impurity, sometimes like an inert thing, remaining speechless because he sees God within and without, sometimes like a child without any attachment, wandering about unconcernedly with his cloth under his arm. This we find verses both in the Bhagavata Purana and in Vivekachudamani. So Thakur was familiar with both. His knowledge of the scripture was far greater than most people think. Because he heard so many things and remembered everything. Yeah. So this is Thakur refers to this many times. It's Unmadavat, like a madman, and Vishachavat, and Jadavat, and Balagavat. These four things. Now, this doesn't mean that a God realized soul has to be like one of these four, or there are no other. We read about Stita Prajna. The Stita Prajna in the chapter 2 of Gita doesn't fall into any of these categories, really. Maybe sometimes can be inert in samadhi. Otherwise, calm and peaceful and quiet and everything. Not like a child, not like a madman, not like a ghoul, going about and doing all silly things and drinking ditch water, the thing. So this is Thakur mentions this partly because he was like that. He had his period of divine madness, right? With Madhava. He always was like a child relying on the divine mother. When he was in the state of samadhi, he was just like an inert thing. And Pishachavat, that not making any distinction between pure and impure because he did all of the tantric sadhana. That was all meant for that. All meant for that, to have no reaction to all sorts of things. Putting feces on the tongue of the jackals and other things. And yeah, just so the mind will have no reaction to that. So he practiced all of these things. Now he'll add also, again, in the mood of a child, he acts in different ways. Sometimes like a boy, yeah. So then he'll say sometimes in all the different stages, as a young boy, as a teenager, as a slightly older boy, and everything. That all different ways that these God realized souls can act. Again, in the mood of a child, he acts in different ways, sometimes like a boy, indulging in frivolity, sometimes like a young man, working and teaching with the strength of a lion. Man cannot see God on account of his ego. You cannot see the sun when a cloud rises in the sky, but that doesn't mean there is no sun. The sun is there just the same. Now, this ego for Sri Ramakrishna, we'll see, he'll start to explain it. Uh, all different types and all different grades and all different levels of helpfulness and harmfulness. So it's not a blank statement. When he says on the account of ego, he means this is tamasic, rajasic, this thick, dark type of ego that doesn't allow us to act freely and doesn't allow us to manifest goodness and kindness and everything else. That this is the great impediment. So I mentioned before, ego ahankara equally means pride. So it's not, ego means whatever our self-image is, but if that includes tremendous pride and arrogance and everything, then there's a tremendous obstacle in spiritual life. So he'll make a statement, and then he'll start to refine it and explain different levels of ego, that it's a complex thing. So first, he says, man cannot see God on account of his ego. Then he'll say, but there's no harm in the ego of a child. And we can say any of the relationships, the servant to the master, no harm in that. The mother to the child, no harm in that. Lover to the beloved, no harm in that. Any of these. But he liked, of course, this ego of the child, because that was his main attitude, worshiping the Divine Mother. But there's no harm in the ego of a child. On the contrary, this ego is helpful. So when we hear that ego is the great obstacle, it's this unripe ego. Thakur uses that language, unripe ego, or this tamasic, rajasic ego. The one that's fully identified with the body, the one that's full of passions and desires and bad samskaras and all of those things. Now, the ego of a child, the child is the simplicity is there. That sankocha is not there. This, what will people think? Yeah, they're especially teenagers, that if they have a bad hair day, or if skin is not good or something, they'll be afraid to even go out. What will my friends think of me? And every teenage years are bad like that. Yeah. So child has nothing of that. Child can walk around naked, won't think anything of it. But there's no harm in the ego of a child. On the contrary, this ego is helpful. Greens are bad for the stomach. Thakur uses these examples quite often. But hinche is good. Yeah, greens, green leafy vegetables will lead to an increase in bile. Yeah. The hinche, for some reason, is a green leafy vegetable that counteracts that tendency of bile. It reduces it, actually. So he's saying that it's not that there are certain types of ego that are simply harmless. They're actually helpful. They're actually helpful. So he says, greens are bad for the stomach, but hinche is good. So hinche cannot properly be called greens. He uses the same example for desire. That worldly desire is one thing, but desire for God will eliminate all other desires, and for that reason cannot really be called a desire itself. It should be considered to be a different class. So there's also, we can say, a different class. Sugar candy, likewise, cannot be classed with other sweets. Other sweets are injurious to the health, but not sugar candy. It's the same thing. It's supposed to lead to acid, ordinary sugar. It'll come up later again. So I said to Keshav, if I tell you more than I've already said, you won't be able to keep your organization together. Yeah. So This Keshav, he loved Sri Ramakrishna. He understood what Thakur was saying was right, but he knew his own slight weaknesses, and he knew his own little desires, and he knew his uh, how important the work was to Keshav, and rightly so. He was doing important work. I mean, we can understand that he had responsibilities for other people and everything. So. If I tell you more than I've already said to you, you won't be able to keep your organization together. That frightened him. Then I said to him, yeah, other times, Thakur repeats himself a lot. Other times, then Keshav says, then let it be for now. Don't say anything else. Then I said to him, there's no harm in the ego of a child or the ego of a servant. So this is the other attitude that Thakur liked very much. Yeah. Then remain as a servant of God. If you can't get rid of this rascal ego, then remain as a servant of God. He who has seen God finds that God alone has become the world and all its living beings. It is he who has become all. Such a person is called a superior devotee. So this is also another great theme that Thakur, he said in the beginning of spiritual life, yes, call this world Maya, call it Mithya. Understand that you can get caught and trapped in it and everything. Try to separate it from I am the witness, all of that, but you'll reach a stage when you can come back and see everything as divine. There's a higher stage. So he always emphasized that idea that this is the highest type of devotee. Now, sometimes he'll say Brahman has become all of this. We have to understand this Saguna Brahman. Nirguna Brahman doesn't get involved in anything. But this Brahman with the Shakti. And this is why in the Upanishads we have this concept of Ishvara, or Brahman being the material cause of the universe. Material cause, not just efficient cause, not creating it. Because the idea is that unlike Sankhya, that there's no separate matter that God can use to build this universe. Something it comes out of the essence of this Brahman, but this Saguna aspect, what Thakur calls the Divine Mother aspect, Shakti. We have this idea, Shakti Parinamavada. There's a doctrine that the whole universe is an evolution of the power of the Divine Mother of Brahman, Shakti. Girish smiling. Yes, God is everything, but the devotee keeps a trace of ego that is not harmful. Girish is saying things that he heard from Sri Ramakrishna and that he accepted, of course. Master smiling. Yes, there's no harm in that. That trace of ego is kept in order to enjoy God. You can enjoy divine bliss only when you make a distinction between yourself and God, the distinction between the servant and the master. So the position that Thakur takes is from the external point of view a dualistic position. The dualistic position is that there's a distinction and a difference and a separation between a devotee and God. What Sri Ramakrishna is saying is that because of this feeling of I that allows us to think, to create for ourselves this feeling of differentiation, we can form a relationship with God, like the stick on water. It really doesn't have any, and with the God realized soul, it's not even a stick on water. It's like a line you draw with your finger on water. It won't last. It hasn't. So he admires all of the spiritual practices of the dualists, but his understanding is that it's all resting on this ocean of consciousness of oneness. So it's a beautiful harmony of the dualistic position, dualistic practice, and a Advaitic understanding, I can say. So a trace of ego, yeah, it's really a feeling. It's not like there's the ego with something, you can have 90%, 40%, you can cut it into pieces, just to leave one little trace. It's a feeling. And for the jnani who realizes that even this trace of ego has no permanence to it, they'll like to remain with this other idea. See, Thakur, when he talks about peeling the onion, you peel off all of the layers, and searching for that I. He says, then you see that there's no I there. You will only find God there. There's no ego there. But he says, no matter how many times you analyze, this sense of I comes back. He was a brilliant psychologist as well as philosopher, Sri Ramakrishna. There's also the devotee of the mediocre class. Now, mediocre class, don't think that this is a small thing. He's talking almost about God-realized people. That because he says that mediocre class, he sees that God dwells in all beings as their inner guide. That's a very high thing. Yeah. But mediocre compared to somebody who sees nothing but God everywhere. So we can say that this may be the jnani as opposed to the vijnani. And he has a very high state. We shouldn't think that he's saying, even when he talks about the inferior devotee, it's somebody with tremendous faith. So he says, there's also the devotee of the mediocre class. He sees that God dwells in all beings as their inner guide. But the inferior devotee says, God exists, he is up there. That is to say, beyond the sky, all left. So, but even then, people can have tremendous faith and a transcendent idea of God that way. Of course, Thakur knew a little bit about the views of the Christian devotees because of Keshab and others, and he read from the Bible and everything. So this idea, even in all the different Hindu type of theology things, God dwells in a heaven that's supposed to be some other place, Vaikuntha or something like that. Yeah. Yeah, it's always angels and clouds and everything sitting on the clouds. Why they don't fall through, I don't understand. But especially with harps. This Christian theology, they play these harps like the apsaras. And hell is always interior, inside the earth. Heaven is always above the clouds, and hell is always inside. That's why, and somehow these old cultures had this idea, interior of the earth was burning. And we know it's true, right? Yeah. Somehow they had that idea, and you can just travel to this underground, this Netherlands. Yeah, that idea. So we have these three, that the highest, I see nothing but God. Then slightly lower than that, I see individual, but I see God dwelling within all. Now, Thakur had both of these. At different times, he would say, I see like pillowcases, and this is an external thing, and the real reality is within. Other times, I see everything is Chinmaya. And also talking to Divine Mother as if she's separate from him, two different entities. When I saw the cowherd boys of Goloka in your performance, all of this is talking to Girish, and them happens to be there. They went backstage, and Girish had his little office there, and they're sitting there. When I saw the cowherd boys of Goloka in your performance, I felt that God has become all. He who has seen God truly knows that God alone is the doer, that it is he who does everything. Now, this is a very, very difficult concept for most people because we feel that we're the ones who are doing things. Yeah. It has to come from feeling that God alone dwells within this body even. There's no I, that type of ego disappears. That there's no other option. God alone dwells within, that means God is the doer within. A very difficult idea. Girish, sir, I know truly that it is God who does everything. And now he's talking big. Yeah. He doesn't know the way Thakur knows, that's for sure. Master, I say, O mother, I am the machine and you are the operator. I am inert and you make me conscious. I do as you make me do. I speak as you make me speak. But the ignorant say, I am partly responsible and God is partly responsible. Now, we have to understand one thing very clearly. Thakur also says that there are people who say, I do as you make me do, who are absolute hypocrites. He says it's only talk for them. It doesn't mean anything at all. So we have to guard against these. This idea, I am partly responsible and God is partly responsible. Yeah, ignorant. That means they're not God realized. It's not a bad thing. Yeah. I remember a story that I heard once that there was a man, probably in Texas, who bought a big ranch. He was a religious man. There was a preacher who he used to meet with from time to time, and his ranch was in horrible shape. And he spent a long time, worked long hours, and fixing everything up and making a garden and building buildings, everything. So it was beautiful. So the preacher stopped by one day and he said to him, "Ah, what a wonderful job you've done with this ranch, you and God together." And this rancher, he looked at him and said, "Yes, you should have seen what it looked like when God had it by himself." So there are different attitudes. Huh? Swamiji would have liked that. Yeah. I remember there was one thing. Swamiji was having a meal with one of the American women devotees who makes a big nice pie or something like that. And he said, "Oh, how delicious it is." And she said, "Yes, thank God it was so good." He said, "Madam, I'm not thanking God for this. I'm thanking you." So he liked this idea. So anyhow, different attitudes. This idea that I'm not the agent of action. This is also the Gita praises this. This is a sign of the highest realization, but it's got to be genuine, and it really comes after God realization. It's very hard to practice that type of idea. If the closest we come it's this giving the power of attorney. Otherwise, we can't fool ourselves and think that Thakur could do it, of course, but we can't do it. Girish, sir, I am not really doing anything. Why should I bother about work at all? Master, no, work is good. Now, if Girish really meant it, or really understood what he's saying, Thakur would probably say, good, then give up everything, go to Benares. But he said, no, work is good. When the ground is well cultivated and cleared of stones and pebbles, whatever you plant will grow. So he's telling Girish that you still have a lot of work. You know, the other times he said it was like this the little pestle that you've crushed garlic in, that bowl that you use with the pestle. It's very hard to get that garlic smell out, no matter how much you wash it. But one should work without any personal motive. So this is the main thing. Do it as an offering. Do it without looking for praise or anything. There are two types of Paramahamsas, the Jnani and the Premi. Premi is, these are those loving types of sadhus. It says, yeah, lover of God, that will just be sweet and even in our order, we have both types. We have some that we have tremendous respect for because of their graveness, and they can be very strict, and they won't be moved by anything. And then there's some that we love for their sweetness. So we have both types, and both are good. But Thakur, he likes the loving type of sadhu. The jnani is self-centered. Now he's talking about a certain type of jnani who only wants to keep saying this world is unreal. I don't want to get attached. I just want to realize the self. That's the only goal of my life. I don't care about anything else. He's talking about that type of jnani. The jnani is self-centered. He feels that it is enough to have knowledge for his own self. The premi, like Shukadeva. Now, we consider Shukadeva to be the greatest jnani, but he wasn't only a jnani. He also had that loving nature. The premi, like Shukadeva, after attaining his own realization, teaches men. Some eat mangoes and wipe off the traces from their mouths, but some share their mangoes with others. Spades and baskets are needed to dig a well. After the digging is over, some throw the spades and baskets into the well. Why would they do that? They're going to drink from this well. Won't it contaminate the well? Anyhow, maybe just agricultural wells or something. Huh? But others put them away, for a neighbor may use them. Shukadeva and a few others kept their spades and baskets for the benefit of others. To Girish, you should do the same. See how he's praising Girish? Because he respects what Girish is doing. He's sincere. He's really, I think he really felt that what Girish was doing was a great service. Girish, please bless me, sir. Now, Thakur never liked that. It's to say, who am I to bless anybody? But he has his own way of doing it. Master, have faith in the Divine Mother and you will attain everything. That's as close as this will come to say, I bless you, my child. Yeah. Other times, if he's in that mood, he'll say, yeah, may you, your spiritual, may your consciousness be awakened. Have faith in the Divine Mother and you will attain everything. Girish, but I am a sinner. Yeah, now, this is the one thing that Girish can really say with perfect honesty. Yeah, he used to say there was no sin that he hadn't committed. Yeah. But Thakur doesn't like this attitude. This is Swamiji got that from Thakur. This standing liable in humankind to call yourself a sinner. And yeah, he didn't like that idea. Master, the wretch who constantly harps on sin becomes a sinner. So Thakur's attitude was, yes, you've made mistakes in the past. You've done things you shouldn't have done. Take a firm vow you won't do it again, and then drop it. Then forget it. Don't dwell on it. But learn from it and change. These two things are necessary. Girish, so the very ground where I used to sit would become unholy. Master, how can you say that? Suppose that light is brought into a room that has been dark 1,000 years. Does it illumine the room little by little or all in a flash? Yeah, so Thakur, he was so kind. He would say, like a huge mass of this cotton or very dry tinder, you put a match to it and it'll just go up in a second like that. All this accumulated bad karma. Girish, then you have blessed me. So he understands that, yeah, this is the way Thakur does it. He won't come right and say it, but yeah. Master, if you sincerely believe it, so that's the thing, that the blessing is good, but he has to really feel that what Thakur is telling him is true. What more shall I say? I eat and drink and chant the name of God. So don't make me feel that I'm the guru, that I'm blessing this and that. Let me remain as a child. This is my attitude. I like to feel like that. Girish, I have no sincerity. Please give it to me. So how honest Girish is, we really have to respect that. How many people will admit all of these things? Master, I. So now he's in his humble mood. Sages like Narada and Shukadeva could have done that. Girish, I don't see Narada and Shukadeva. Yeah, Girish had such faith in Thakur. Yes, unbelievable. But you were here before me. Master smiling. All right, you have faith. So again, he's giving the blessing. All remain silent. Yeah, Girish could do that. There'd be conversations between Girish and Thakur, and people would just be with their mouths open listening. The conversation began again. Girish, I have one desire, love of God for its own sake. Now, Thakur, he can confuse us sometimes because he'll tell us many things that this is what you have to strive for. This is the ultimate goal. that don't pray for anything, but it'll go on and on and on. And then he'll say only the Ishvara Kotis can get it. So what I take from this is that we don't expect 100%. We strive for it, and as far as possible, that we try to have the pure type of love for God. So he'll say, Master, only the Ishvara Kotis have such love. It is not for ordinary men. So when Thakur says, when this idea of ahetuki bhakti, and he's telling us all the time that we should strive for that, but to actually have no thought about oneself, to have no selfish motive in anything, is a very rare type of thing. All sat in silence. The master began to sing in an absent-minded mood, his gaze turned upward. Can everyone have the vision of Shama? So this is a Kamalakanta song that either Thakur had it in mind before he made that statement, or he made the statement and he thought of the song. Sometimes I think he has the song in mind first and gives it like a little introduction to it. Can everyone have the vision of Shama? Is Kali's treasure for everyone? Oh, what a pity my foolish mind will not see what is true. Even with all his penances, rarely does Shiva himself behold the mind-bewitching sight of Mother Shama's crimson feet. This is a real worshipper of the Divine Mother. For them, even Shiva is just an ordinary fellow. Yeah, striving to realize Mother of also. To him who meditates on her, the riches of heaven are poor indeed. If Shama casts her glance on him, he swims in eternal bliss. The prince of yogis, the king of the gods, Shiva, meditates on her feet in vain. Yet, worthless Kamalakanta yearns for the mother's blessed feet. Nirguni Kamalakanta, Prabhu Charanachai. This is a beautiful song. Girish repeated, yet worthless Kamalakanta yearns for the mother's blessed feet. Master to Girish. One can realize God through intense renunciation. Yeah, now that Thakur's mind, how it worked, we don't always understand. It'll go from one thing to the other, that who can realize the Divine Mother, this and that, and then you have to do it, and everything is through love and devotion, and now it's renunciation. Somehow these things are triggered in his mind, and there's some very deep logic to all of these things. Intense renunciation. And for Sri Ramakrishna, intense renunciation means intense longing for God. Vairagya and Anuraga, always hand in hand. Always. Yeah, just to feel that this world is a horrible place, I want to get out. That's not Vairagya for Thakur. That's just a defeatist type of attitude. But this longing for something that works hand in hand with Vairagya and Anuraga. But the soul must be restless for him, see? As soon as he says intense renunciation, he adds, but the soul must be restless for him. As restless as one feels for a breath of air when one's head is pressed underwater. Yeah, I've mentioned many times, I like this idea because feeling that one is drowning is the Vairagya. Longing for the air is Anuraga, Vyakulata. Together, you can't separate the two, in that example, at least. A man can see God if he unites in himself the force of these three attractions. The attraction of worldly possessions for the worldly man, the husband's attraction for the chaste wife, and the child's attraction for its mother. All three together, not one of the three. The force of all three together. If you can unite these three forms of love and give it all to God, then you can see him at once. Cry to your mother Shama with a real cry, O mind, and how can she hold herself from you? So the same devotee is Kamalakanta or Ram Prasad. They'll talk about Who can understand Mother Kali? How rare to have the division. And at the same time that she has to come. The child cries for her, and the mother will put down everything and come running. Both attitudes are there. See, so before this, it was who can everyone have the vision of Shama? And my foolish mind won't understand it's true. And then cry to your mother Shama with a real cry, O mine. And how can she hold herself from you? If a devotee prays to God with real longing, God cannot help revealing himself to him. So this is that emphasis that that Thakur puts on this vyakulata, this longing, this feeling of tremendous agony, as if we're drowning. This longing for that breath of air, for the vision of the mother, for the realization of God. Okay, so we'll stop here. We're in the middle of page 680. Om Niranjanam Nityamanantarupam Bhaktanukambhathurita Vikraham Ishavataram Parameshamidhyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasa Namama. We bow our heads before Sri Ramakrishna, who is stainless, of infinite nature, whose heart melts in sympathy for his devotees, who is an embodiment of the divine and the Supreme Lord, and ever worthy of our worship. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Okay, thank you, everyone. And next Friday, we won't have the gospel class. I'll be in Connecticut. Okay. Everyone have a good week.